Okay, service-oriented architecture, right? So, if you remember, so we discussed about distributed architecture, right? So, where I was giving some examples, like when we can actually distribute our components in different machines, So, SOA is an extension of that, and we also have seen, how the monolithic architecture look like, right? So, it's like a big chunk of a big chunk of services working together as a single application. So it's like an one executable, and then whenever you are deploying it, you have to deploy that application together. Like you cannot just cut into component wise, although maybe you follow some modular approach in the design, but you cannot cut it into component wise and deploy or test separately, right? So if you remember, no, I have also talked about monolithic advantages and disadvantages. So if you have any commitment to one technology, yeah, monolithic is actually good. So you and it is like your infrastructure cost also you can reduce to certain extent, right? Because service oriented means each service may need a separate infrastructure need, basically containers and all. But here, since you need to deploy everything together as a one package, so your you can also save in the infrastructure cost. But yeah, scalability is an issue, like and debugging, adding new components is little bit complicated there. So yeah, SOA is not a new concept, like it is there in the industry for some time. So it was evolved to cut short some of the limitations which monolithic architecture have. So in service oriented architecture, you can imagine multiple heterogeneous components working together for a common goal. No, in the monolithic, you have seen it is like a one technology, right? One component, one technology. But what if different components are needs a different technology stack, right? So how you will actually integrate all those things to achieve a common business goal, basically, right? So maybe each and every component is having different technologies. That maybe one is developed in Java, one is .NET, one is Python, right? So how we will actually integrate it? And maybe each component is a totally different component, right? So cross-platform support is one thing which is SOA provide. Then components are loosely coupled and distributed, and it actually reduces the complexity by providing better abstraction. So let's take a very generic example. No. Okay, so to understand actually how SOA works, then we'll see also one more example, like more relevant to the software world. First, start with a generic example. So suppose Sai wants to open a barista or cafe house in his native, right? He wants to open it next to educational institute, right? So he has done a business research and he come up with an idea. Okay, let's open a coffee house. Now to open a coffee house, he realized that he needs a lot of different things, right? So it's not like you open and forget about it, right? So how things work, right? Starting from the ingredients, right? So what kind of ingredients we generally need to start a small cafe house, like maybe the different types of coffee, different types of tea. And even if Sai wants to give some good snacks, because coffee, tea, I mean, without snacks is doesn't make any sense, right? So it should accompanied by some good snacks. So all the food related ingredients, he has to collect it from somewhere, right? So it's not like he will every day he will go and buy things and then run the business. So he will be, say you will be thinking like, okay, no, let me contact some resellers, or some person who actually give you all these ingredients in bulk, right? So in a cheaper price, and they delivers in to your shop every day morning, right? So and you can make maybe weekly or monthly payment according to the contract you are signing with them, right? So that is one component which is totally independent of if you see the other components, right? So it will not have any impact on maybe the payment or infrastructure or the stuff, right? So this there's a concept called service autonomy, right? So what is autonomy means, each component of a SOA is should be independent, and they should be able to take their own decision. Now, like you are buying some ingredients from one person, and he should be responsible for giving you like quality ingredient, right? So he should be able to give you like as per your need. Like you want best coffee powders or coffee beans, or you want best tea powder, right? He should be able to give you that. He should take care of that basically. You should not go and tell him like you get the coffee from Uti's best shop, or from Darjeeling's best tea garden. So he should take care of all your needs, by providing you a better abstraction. Okay. So similarly for payment, right? So since payment is important for you, right? So you have to either take cash, or nowadays there are a lot of options, right? So Paytm, GPay, if you are in India, so we have a lot of options, right? So you, instead of you creating that payment module yourself, Sai, so you will probably outsource that to a already established vendor, right? So maybe you can take Paytm's help to integrate it to an app, right? Or maybe you will provide the customers to that scanning option, like after drinking coffee, tea, they can scan a code, and then they can make a payment, right? So payment is that responsibility, obviously you will give it to the third party. So on the secure payment and all, they will take care, right? So you really don't need to bother much about like how we'll handle the payment. So thing is like payment should come to your dedicated bank account, right? So again, the service autonomy concept coming here. So finance provider will take care of everything for you, right? So providing you a good abstraction. So similarly for the infrastructure side, right? So you may need tables, chairs, right? To basic infrastructure in place when you're starting a business, right? So again, probably you will contact a vendor who will provide you the things needed, right? So they will take care of that part for you. Like even you may need a coffee vending machine or tea vending machine, right? So that if your staff is not there also, you can actually take care of that. uh, if infrastructure is taken care, then you might be needing some staff, right? So who will actually do all the things for you. Obviously you will not make coffee and you will you will not take payment together, right? So you will appoint some staff. Now when I say staff, right, so again you have to look for some people whom you can trust, right? So you cannot keep anybody in your shop, right? So probably you will look for some agency, or some consultancy who can provide you reliable stuff. So all these components, if you see, are needed for you to run the business, but those are not dependent on each other, right? So those are coming to you via a common channel. That's you. So you are the core part of your business, but all are working together, providing you different services so that your business can grow, right? So there are some common terminologies here, like giving a interface, and then maybe the common language, right? So staff, right? So in your shop, right, so you probably look for staff who knows the local language, and maybe one common language, right? So that is your contract basically, right? Because if you are in Hyderabad and you appointed a staff who doesn't know Telugu, right? So obviously you may lose some of your customers, right? So you will not, definitely will not take a chance, right? So you will maybe appoint a staff who knows at least maybe Telugu, Hindi, or to some extent maybe English, right? Because in the educational institute next to which you are running a business, there might be students who doesn't know maybe the local language, right? So obviously, if the staff knows additional language, you know that is helpful. That is the contract basically, right? So you will make sure, like, everyone speaks the same language, whatever you decided in your agreement, right? If you see in this entire structure, right? So suppose your business is running fine, and you are earning good amount of money, and now you want to replicate it, right? So you want to open one more uh, coffee shop, maybe next in the Hyderabad International Airport. I mean, better one, very good one. So obviously, you may not do everything from scratch, right? So there will be some things you will be able to reuse, like your payment options and all. Maybe you will add some additional payment options, like which will help you to get international payment, right? So again, you can talk to your payment guys and ask them to enable international payment for you. Maybe you may need some additional infrastructure, or maybe more staff, right? And maybe more ingredients. So each component you should be able to reuse. So if you see service oriented architecture, right? So reusability also a very, very important concept, or you can say characteristics. So you should be able to reuse whenever all these components, whenever you have a need, basically. The another important concept here is the service bus, right? So what is a service bus is like how the entire thing actually coordinates and works together, right? So in this example, everything is happening via you, right? So you are the owner, so all entire shop is running on your shoulders, right? So you have the complete responsibility, right? So if tomorrow you decided, no, I will go to abroad and I am closing my shop, then it will break, right? So your shop will close until and unless you give it to somebody else, to run. So that will close. So service oriented architecture, no, I'll give you another proper example for that, but just remember, like all the communication happens via enterprise service bus. So that is again a software component, so via which all these components will talk to each other. So probably the ingredients and stuff will not directly talk to each other, right? So they will talk to each other maybe via you only, right? So that is the medium of common communication, that is called enterprise service bus. So there is another concept called service discovery, right? So how actually someone will discover a service. So in microservices world, so you might have heard that word quite a lot, like service discovery, right? So what is it actually? We will see in detail in upcoming classes, like what is service discovery. I'll show you examples also. But in high level, service discovery means you are providing a service, and you are giving a metadata to it, so that who is taking the service knows what it is, right? For example here, right? So in a coffee shop, suppose your one staff has made coffee and one staff has made tea, right? So, and you have two big jars to keep that stuff hot, right? So so that the customers can consume it, right? So you are keeping in two big jars. So the person who makes always daily, he might be knowing, right? So which jar you are keeping coffee, or which jar you are keeping tea. But the person who is serving, right? So how that person will know, right? So obviously you have to put some label, right? Or some differentiator, right? So that the staff member can actually identify. Obviously he or she will not always open the lid and smell it and then give, right? So that is not possible. So you have to label it in such a way that they identify, okay, this is black tea, this is milk tea, this is black coffee, this is milk coffee, like that. And this is where, like, service, no, you are discovering a particular service and availing it, right? So suppose you have, kept some beans, to throw away the waste stuff. So yeah, we level it, right? So like, this is dry, this is wet, this is, red waste. So we make it simple for other people to understand what that service is, right? So in a way, in a similar way, in a software environment, right, in a microservices world, right? So suppose a consumer wants to, use one service, right? So how consumer will know, what is that service is all about, right? So where that service is actually deployed, what is the IP address, what is the port, right? So to consume a particular service, we know, like, we need a URL, right? So we need the complete URL, the IP port and all those stuff. So how the consumer will know about it, right? So there are different concepts like, auto discovery, automatic discovery, or service, register in a service registry. So we'll talk about those in a while, but yeah, in a nutshell, again, this is the concept of service discovery. It's like, you are providing a metadata which will help you to identify, which service is providing what service. Okay. So yeah, here you can see, like, all these, things are actually loosely coupled, right? So they are working together with a common channel, basically, right? Any doubts so far?
No Dimpy.
No, Dimpi.
Okay, good. So this is a very, interesting topic. A lot of things there, and yeah, it's interesting from interview point of view. Also, they generally ask. I mean, many of my interviews, at least, they ask about it. So let's see a software related example. I'll quickly go through it. Suppose, you want to create a smart parking system, right? So maybe the mobile app, right? So how you will actually do it, right? So what exactly you need? So you may need the location information, similarly payment, authorization, right? Maybe different hardwares, right? So like, sensors and all, which will detect, where the parking space is available, right? So and give you the information. So obviously, since location information, there are a lot of providers, like Google provides, location. Then payment also, there are providers. Then hardware also, there will be different manufacturers, right? So and authorization, yeah, you can deploy your application in cloud, and then you can take their authorization services. So you can actually, create a system, right? So service oriented system, using all these components, integrating together. So here the important point is system integration. Okay, so in a service oriented architecture, because components are different, right? So how these components will talk to each other, that you have to take care, because you may have hardware components, you have, third party components, right? So all these components you have to integrate to create a common business goal. So it should provide a better abstraction, and it should provide a common business goal. And autonomy, yeah, always important, because each, you know uh, component should work together, right, independently. So yeah, and it should be also, dynamic in nature, like, there are service oriented architecture which is event driven. I will talk about it when I discuss the microservices in detail. So yeah, this is, in high level service oriented architecture, characteristics. You can say abstraction over complexity. Now you understood why I was telling about abstraction over complexity. It should be discoverable, right? So, and autonomy, like, it should be able to work independently, each component. Reusability factor should be there. Your service should follow a contract which is, agreed upon. then it should be loosely coupled, and very important, cross-platform support, right? So all this, I think we have seen with the example. Now I think you understood about all these components, I'm assuming that. So yeah, again, this is a very high level architecture, component diagram. You can see, you have different systems, and each systems are talking to each other via an enterprise service bus. So enterprise service bus, again, it's a software component. So you can use it to integrate different types of applications. For example, you have a front end which is written using Angular or React.js, right? And probably you have a backend Salesforce CRM. This is a complete, separate system, right? So how you will integrate both the applications, right? Or maybe you have multiple ERPs in place, or maybe some local systems, right? So running in your organizations, like multiple systems, like HR team is managing a set of tools, finance team is managing a set of tools, your IT team is managing a set of tools, right? So yeah, if you want to have a common architecture of managing all those things together, right? So you can go ahead with service oriented architecture with a proper enterprise service bus. One example could be MuleSoft. They provide this enterprise service bus software. We can actually integrate it, and internally mostly those will be APIs, basically, which will take a request from maybe system 1. Suppose system 1 wants to connect to system 5, right? So system 1 will send a message to the enterprise service bus, like which system it wants to connect, all the information it will give, and service bus will route that information to the correct recipient, basically. So there won't be any direct communication between the systems. So let's see, a little bit about this enterprise service bus, right? So what are the facilities it generally provides? First thing, no, you have already know from the previous diagram, right? So it is routing the information between the different components. So component 1 to component 2, or vice versa, right? So all the communication will happen between this channel, right? So it will create a channel between the components, basically. Second thing, it provides the data transformation. Yeah, obviously. So once the connection is established, I want to send some data from one system to another system, or I want to receive data, right? I can do that using this service bus. Another important thing is security. Now, see, if you see in the previous slide, right? So suppose system 1 now doesn't know anything about system 5, right? So what authentication mechanism system 5 is using? Because obviously those are two different systems, so they will be having their own authorization and authentication and authorization process, right? So what as a middleman service bus can actually facilitate that part, right? So it can help system 1 to connect with system 5 in a secure manner, right? So system 1 doesn't need to bother much about how to handle that authentication part. So service bus will know what are the connected systems, what is the authorization mechanism we have to follow. It will facilitate that part. Okay, so that all the systems can actually talk to each other securely. Now, another important thing is federated enterprise service bus. So what is that? Now, if you see in diagram, I have only one service bus, right? So what will happen if this service bus somehow, is not working? Real time, it may not, they will make sure it will work. But assume that, this service bus is broken, right? So for some reason, it is not working, something happened. Now all the communication will go, right? So how these components will now talk to each other? So we have to make sure, so that if something happens to the service bus, at least the communication should not broke, right? So for that, another concept comes like federated enterprise service bus. What it is actually, you will be having, it's like a load balancer kind of stuff. So it will be having, small service buses which will facilitate the systems basically. At least if one service bus is broken, maybe the entire, it will not, it will prevent the entire system to go down basically. Okay, so it's something similar to load balancer kind of architecture here. Basically, there will be multiple service buses. It is not like one in a federated design. So they will design it in such a way that if one service bus it's not working also, maybe the entire system will not go down.